Call to order the Goffstown Select Board meeting of June 27th, 2022. Would you all please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
First order of business is the acceptance and/or corrections of minutes from 6/13/2022, public and non-public minutes.
I'll make the motion, we accept the 6/13/2022 public and non-public minutes with corrections if need be.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstaining, motion passes 5-0. Announcements, I don't have any announcements, but I do have a letter that I'd like to read from, this is from Dave French, and it's in reference to Goffstown Gallup. It says, "Dear Peter, I wanted to express my appreciation to the Select Board as well as the Parks and Rec Commission for their continued support of the Gallup. We had a great crowd on Saturday with both people young and old participating. We had runners in the starting line that came from as far away as Florida," this is his daughter, "and as well as Georgia. We had people running virtually from Arizona and Illinois. The overall winner was a former Goffstown High School runner who lives in Massachusetts. The support system from the Goffstown Police Department as well as CERT volunteers were again great, as were Parks and Recreation staff under Director Rick Wilhelmi's direction. I have expressed many times how much having the Gallup named after me has meant to me as well as my family. Seeing so many people returning year after year and expressing their gratitude for the continuation of the Gallup is a testimony to our community and its leaders. On behalf of myself, my wife Barbara, my children Heather and Steve, and the runners and their families, thank you so much for your continued support. Looking forward to number 44 next June. Sincerely, Dave, Barbara, Heather, and Steve French." He asked me to read that, we did, and so it's a token to what he's done for the town over the years, so. Is that any other announcements, Derek?
No.
And you want to go into a couple of things before we?
Sure, yeah. At tab 7, you have your committee meeting scheduled for the next 2 weeks. On Thursday this week at 6 p.m. CIP will be in this room.
Got it.
Next week, just a reminder, the town hall will be closed on Monday. On Wednesday at 6 p.m. Economic Development Council.
Got it,
And next Thursday, 6 p.m. CIP.
again.
Derek, I'd just like to note, Wednesday, the Library Board of Trustees has a meeting.
Which Wednesday?
The second Wednesday.
Oh, okay.
They're doing every other week.
On the
for the
6th.
summer.
Okay, so that'll be on the July 6th.
Yes.
Thank you.
I'm sorry?
I believe it's the first and third Wednesday, isn't it?
Yep, that's the correct Wednesday.
It's the second in the packet.
Oh, okay, sorry.
That's okay. On your table, I had one item I had asked to add. Danielle noticed that when the board revised the labor grade matrix last meeting, that the labor grade 0 for crossing guards was incorrect. I used the 2019 version as a starting point rather than what I should have. So I'd just be seeking an amendment to your vote from last week to correct that error and provide the 3.0% matrix adjustment for the crossing guards, and it's highlighted in yellow there. What you approved last week is immediately below that, so it is a slight increase, but it would be able to be absorbed into the 2022 police department budget. Basically, I wasn't using the active matrix as a base. I used the wrong one as a base.
So you want, what you're looking for is a motion to approve the corrected,
Yes,
amended matrix?
yes, for labor grade 0.
Right.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
Motion by Kelly, seconded by Collis. Any discussion? Seeing none, motion passes.
Thank you. Next page, you have your consent agenda. You have employee status reports. You have 2 fire lieutenants that are ending ancillary stipends. Those because those are being absorbed by the ZBA that was passed at town meeting. You have a new hire for a DPW laborer. You have a Parks and Rec head lifeguard pay adjustment. You have a firefighter resignation, and you have firefighter 2 EMT new hire. And then added today is a 1 summer camp counselor. This is a substitute new hire. You have the July 1st pay changes for union and non-union based on the matrix that was adopted last week, as well as CBAs. You have rights to inter on Shirley Hill Cemetery, Section 1, Lots 17, 18, and 49, and West Lawn Expansion Cemetery, Section 1, Cremation Garden, Lot 34. You have an Eversource pole license. This is for 3 poles. It's actually installation of 3 new poles and replacement of 1 existing pole on Dunbarton Road. Pole 3876X, 75Z, and 75Y. You have a junkyard operator license renewal for Hebert's Junkyard on Shirley Hill. You have a notice of appointment for a police officer. And you have event permits for Main Street program Uncommon Art on the Common on August 6th from 9 to 3. For Uncanunic Snowmobile and Mini Bike Show and Swap Meet from 8 to 3 p.m. I don't see a date there, so I'll have to pull that one out and see what date that is. And then Millennium Running Manchester City Marathon November 13th from 8:50 to 4 p.m.
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Second. Motion by Kelly, second by Jim. I have a question.
Yes.
When are we going to go back to bringing in the new hires, like from the police department and the fire department, as we used to do for a swearing-in ceremony?
I can talk to the chiefs about that. Yep, we can talk to the chiefs. I know that the police department and the fire department, especially with how many they had 2 years ago, that they preferred to do it on one night, but I'll talk to both chiefs about that and see how they want to proceed with it.
And we had canceled it also due to COVID.
Yep.
So I would just, they used to come in, we'd swear them in, take some pictures with the family, that kind of a thing, and I think that was a nice ceremony. I'd like to see it come back.
Okay, I will talk to both chiefs about that.
Okay, so we have a motion by Kelly, seconded by Jim. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstaining, motion passes.
And then the last item I have tonight is the library trustees. They have 2 vacancies on their elected full member boards. They met on Wednesday, June 17th, and they recommend to the select board that Laura Stevens be appointed to one of the unfilled elected positions on the library board of trustees, and this would be until the next municipal election in March of 2023.
Make a motion,
Go ahead.
make a motion to appoint Laura Stevens as a trustee on the Goffstown Library Board of Trustee with the term expiring at the next election, municipal election, on March 2023.
Second.
Motion by Mark, seconded by Kelly. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstaining, motion passes. I think at this time I'm going to open it up for public comment. It's close enough to 6:10. Is there anybody here for public comment? Seeing none, we'll move on. Next up would be the Main Street program.
Do you want to introduce myself?
Oh, yes, please.
I'm Marissa Berg, and I am the secretary for the Goffstown Main Street program.
We're at tab 4 in your packet.
And you're here about planters.
Yes, so the Main Street program would like to purchase and install and fill with plants 5 self-watering commercial planters. You should have in your packets the map with the proposed locations.
We have a
of the
map and a
planters.
picture of the planters.
Yep.
Perfect, okay, so yeah, that photograph is a sample of exactly the planters that we would like to purchase, the square ones. They are self-watering, so they will hopefully rarely need water. They need to be watered every like 2 weeks, but with rain, I'm hoping it'll be okay. We will take care of, we do have a storage place for them for the winter. So Main Street program, whatever date is determined that we need to come and remove them, we will store them for the winter and then put them back out in the spring. We are taking care of the purchase of the planters, the soil, as well as the plants and maintenance for these planters. So we were just looking for approval because it would be in the right of way along Main Street for replacement for these.
I think Carlos had a question, didn't you?
I'm just curious, how do they work? I mean, they're so,
Yeah, so it's like a planter inside a planter. So there's drainage holes where the water drains through and it stores the water inside the planter.
rainwater or what water?
Any water. I mean, if it's like 2 to 3 weeks or so that there's no rain, we would have to go down
So
and water
you'd be
them.
taking care of all of that? You'd
Oh, yeah, no, we,
Add
yeah,
water as needed?
yep,
periodically? Okay,
yep, the Main Street program would take care of the watering.
thank you.
Any other questions? Jim? Go ahead.
I just said, is this in perpetuity with granting a permission? It sounded like you're gonna do it every year.
Well, we would purchase the planters and, I mean, we're not planning on purchasing more planters, but yes, we would take care of those planters, put them back out in the spring, put new plants in.
Okay, good enough.
Yeah.
I'm for it.
Yeah.
Kelly?
No, that was actually one of mine, if we were accepting a donation, or if we were just granting them the right of way to use for the planters itself.
Well, my feelings are they own the planters, so it really isn't really a donation of the
Correct.
planters. So it would be
The
Be a
granting.
temporary license.
to put plants on the Main Street with planters. Would that be accurate?
Yes.
Yeah, so it's not a donation.
Great. My only other question, you did mention that they'd be removed in winter. Do you know the time frame for that? Because, you know, New England weather and,
So we're gonna be storing them at a landscaping, you know, at a landscaper's lot in the winter. So it's really whatever time, I think there was a mention, I wanna say prior to the pumpkin regatta.
I think I had mentioned
traffic,
either
yeah, foot
prior
traffic.
to Pumpkin Regatta or Halloween, as those have the most foot traffic down in town, that you may want to consider that either one of those, and we have had snow on Halloween before.
right.
Mr. Chair, may I offer a comment
Are you here for public comment, David?
for the planters?
Oh, come on up, David.
Can I just say,
Go ahead.
is this, are you intending to do this like this week or?
Well, there's a 2 to 4 week turnaround time, so we didn't order them yet. We wanted to get approval before we ordered them, but once we order, it's 2 to 4 weeks for delivery.
Is there another one of those there, Mark? Did you get one?
No.
Okay. Yeah. Okay.
Mr. Chair,
Go right ahead, David.
I'm David Pierce, 21 Mill Street, and I, among all my other duties, I'm the manager of the Popcorn Wagon. And in your packet, you'll see in the upper left-hand diagram, there's a planter on the corner where the Popcorn Wagon is. And I've taken the engineered graphic made by Public Works, and the only feature that I can recognize in that graphic is the edge of the pavements. And so I've taken the edge of the pavements and dropped it into a more recognizable drawing, which was the redevelopment of Main Street. The point being is that when I dropped the planter graphic into the diagram for reconstruction of the Main Street, the planter is now on Lyons property, which is the green line represented on that graphic. From my standpoint, the planter is an obstruction to our sales window in the wagon. But more importantly, I think it's not appropriate for a modern planter to be right next to the granite horse trough that the garden club maintains with flowers. It's in competition, and it shouldn't be right there at the same location.
So, and
So
the Lions Club feels that they would not rather have a planter there. That's the
That's
gist of your conversation.
It-
Okay, thank
It
you.
should maybe other islands associated with Sully's, and
Okay,
I'd be
I
glad.
I think we can eliminate that from that spot. And
Yeah,
you, if you want to
absolutely.
come up with another spot, get together with Derek.
Yeah,
That he finds it
absolutely.
appropriate. Would that be okay with you?
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you,
Okay.
Mr. Chair.
You're welcome.
Yeah.
Teamwork.
Yeah, and I mean, really what it was is just, I was just driving back and forth down Main Street trying to think, okay, you can see it, you know, from both directions here and here and here. So we're very open to
And no, we
whatever makes sense.
appreciate what you're trying to do to beautify the community, for sure.
So I think it's you need to vote on this? or-
Yes, please, yes.
A motion to approve the temporary license for the planters in
Right.
Main Street.
4 of them which we know of and
the
1 to
fourth
be
to work with
decided.
the-
Can-
yeah, with Derek.
Jim?
I'll second it, but is the question, are they gonna have to come back here for the site of the replacement one?
No, that's what my idea was, to let them
So it's
work with
okay.
Derek.
So we'll work up the actual agreement and have that in a future consent agreement, but this will give them the go-ahead.
Might
Go
we
ahead and
just-
order them, because you
Yep.
said it's going to be 2 to 4 weeks.
Yeah, it's 2 to
anyway.
4 weeks. And once we do get them delivered, they only weigh 30 pounds empty. So, you know,
Sure.
if it is truly an obstruction, we can.
Okay, we have a motion by Kelly, seconded by Jim. Any discussion?
Well, I'd like to make a finding that this is being done without the use of town monies, and that they're gonna be responsible for deploying them, retrieving them, maintaining them, and there'd be no town funds utilized for this effort.
I think that was understood in the conversation.
So it's in the record.
Yep.
I just want to mention, maybe we consider Rotary Park as well, and give them the same courtesy as Lions Club. Just a
Okay.
comment.
Let's take care of this one. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstaining, motion passes.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. DPW Director?
So can I just ask one
Go ahead.
question? If we approved a temporary license, will they have to come back next year and re-request?
No, I think we can write it in such a
Okay.
manner that most of our license, when they deal with right-of-way, they're temporary in the fact that
We can
if,
revoke.
that you could revoke it at
Okay,
any point.
just wanted to make sure. Thank you.
First up is with the truck scale RFP, which is number 5.
Yes, good evening. Just for tonight's action, just requesting the permission to advertise our request for proposals for replacement of the truck scale. It's been budgeted in CIP this year. It's a 10 by 40 pit scale transfer station. I'm sure most everybody's driven over it once or twice. The idea is to keep it drivable for the foreseeable future. So I'd like to get this project out as soon as we can and hopefully get some reasonable bids to get at least the pit internals replaced.
Recommend a motion. Go ahead.
Second, yep, I was just seeing if
Right
there
here.
were questions. I'll make a motion to, recommend motion to advertise for bids for the sales and service of the transfer station truck scale.
Second.
Motion by Kelly, seconded by Collis. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstaining, motion passes.
Thank you. We'll get that out this week. Second item tonight, pretty quick, but it's similar to last meeting. We had a non-resident caregiver permit. This time, similar, we just have a local resident who's of driving age but does not drive or own a vehicle. Would like permission for their, for lack of a better term, transportation provider to be able to come pick them up at their residence on Henry Bridge Road, bring them to the lake. So rather than a full transfer station permit, we prefer to keep it in this realm of, single-use type thing. So with the board's authorization, I could make up another temporary permit for Glen Lake.
I'll make a motion to recommend issuing a Glen Lake waterfront non-driver resident permit to Marie Demers, 51 Henry Bridge Road.
Second.
Motion by Collis, seconded by Mark. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstaining, motion passes.
Okay, thank you.
Police chief next.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. Plus some pictures. So for highway safety, we met 2 weeks ago. Do you want to do it the typical way, just take them as one by one?
One at a time.
Okay. So the first one was actually from last year. Stephen Drive came in to talk about reducing their speed limit sign. This was right after the board had recommended that we take them once a year. So she came in right after the board made that motion. So this has been basically sitting on the books since September of last year. We've been in contact with her, but essentially her concern was that they're seeing an increase of speeders on Stephen Drive down in Helen Circle up on the mountain area. It's that road that has like almost like it looks like a mini drag strip that goes on both ways. Her concern now is not necessarily the residents, it's the UPS drivers, the FedEx drivers, the Amazon drivers, other Uber Eats drivers that are coming up and down the road. So there is no sign there, so she's asking for her neighborhood to be a 25-mile-an-hour speed limit sign and 25 miles an hour. So the Highway Safety Committee met on it, and they all recommended to reduce it to 25 miles an hour the entire length of Stephen Drive. And some of that reason is there are numerous amounts of walkers that walk their dogs up there, and our children are out in the streets playing. So.
Okay, any questions? Motions?
Wait,
Go ahead, Jim.
Are there sidewalks on that road? No. Okay.
I'll make a motion to allow the speed limit on Stevens Drive to be dropped to 25 miles per hour the entire length of Stevens Drive.
That's just to go forward, right?
That'd be go forward to
Go forward.
ordinance. I should have written that better. Yeah, it'd be to go forward for the public hearing for ordinance.
Second.
Motion by Mark, seconded by Kelly. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstaining, motion passes.
Thank you. Second one we met, the highway citizen had requested or asked us why the Glen Lake school area was not a school zone. She really just emailed it in, kind of wanted to see, asked a few questions. We discussed it, and we reached back out to her and just let her know that it's never been a school zone. It doesn't meet the qualifications or the definition as a school under the New Hampshire RSA. Also, there's not a lot of pedestrian traffic in that area, and the long driveway, the Highway Safety Committee looked at the driveway area, and it doesn't protrude out into the street area. So we are not recommending it to be a school zone. We haven't had it since. There's other kindergartens in this town that don't have a school zone. So we let her know that, and there's basically no action here for that. I just want to let the board know.
Okay, next. What? Go ahead.
Is it just the proximity to the main road, I'm assuming?
So it sounds like for her, she feels like the cars are on Elm Street are just driving too fast by the school, whereas right down the street on Maple Ave, you have a school zone, so now they're a little bit slower in that area. So she was just kind of wondering why Maple Ave has it, but not Glen Lake Elementary School, kindergarten. So we just let her know that by definition it's not a school because it's a kindergarten, and that nobody's really walking around that area on foot. So.
Thank you.
Next.
So another email that came in to DPW Director Adam Jacobs. They just finished paving Catamount Road. There is a 35 mile an hour speed limit sign on that road, which is a little bit, I guess according to Adam, is a little bit unusual for that neighborhood up there. She feels that the 35 mile an hour speed limit zone is making cars feel like they can drive faster because they give it a little bit more than maybe 10 over. She's asking if either we can reduce the speed limit sign to 25 or have extra patrols in the area. Adam also recommended that we can put potentially take that speed limit sign out and see if that makes a difference. So it's not advertising it's a 35. And also for us, we're going to basically put our radar trailer out there and our covert radar unit that gives us the raw data, and then come back and let her know what our findings are, and then if we have to come back to highway safety and propose a town ordinance to lower the speed limit, we'll do that at a different time, so she's okay with that.
Okay, next.
And the last one is kind of an interesting one. I'll set the stage with, this is the Maple Ave, Elm Street School Zone traffic issue. Back in 2017, the highway safety looked at this same exact intersection and the traffic issues back then. There were several different recommendations made, one of which was what we're proposing tonight, but did not happen. The Highway Safety Committee proposed at that time to the board a different way of doing things. We tried it. I remember being there. It took about 12 officers to change up the entire traffic pattern for 3 days. It was a lot of resources. It seemed to alleviate some of the traffic on Elm Street, but just the personnel power of having all those officers there and the teachers weren't able to help us. It just never came to fruition. Summer came and it just kind of went away. So here we are, 2022, still having traffic issues in Elm Street. Basically, we sent a team of officers out there to study this intersection, look at it, and try to come up with a plan of what we can do to kind of alleviate Elm Street traffic. Part of that report from those particular officers was that the traffic on Elm Street is backing up and it's all entering Maple Ave. So we're seeing an increase of parents bringing their kids to school and picking them up. Obviously, I think everybody here knows the school buses are they're having a shortage for drivers, so we're seeing a huge increase in cars going to Maple Ave. What's happening in our community, and I have some pictures I can show the board that's in your packet, but these are kind of blown up, is because these cars are turning onto Maple Ave, it's causing them to back up all the way down Maple Ave and then overflow on Elm Street, which is then bringing all the way down to Main Street and blocking traffic on Main Street, and also backing up all the way down Elm Street past the power station. What we're seeing, and some of the pictures you'll see here in your packet, but these are a little bigger. This is looking from Shirley's area at the corner of Maple Ave down to the power station. You can see all these cars are waiting. Some of them are waiting to in line to pick their kids up, or some are just waiting because they don't really know what to do. You'll see in this one, it's all the way down Elm Street. In fact, one day we had this situation where all these cars were backed up all the way down, and we had a dump truck that basically was sick of waiting in line for 20-30 minutes and double yelled all these cars, and then Shirley was in the middle of the street basically letting kids cross the street. Now we have this dump truck stopped in the middle of the other lane, all these cars here, kids crossing the street. We're just waiting for the moment that someone gets hit by a car. We talked to the school's on board with whatever we can do to help alleviate some of that traffic. You'll see that it gets backed up. I have a few pictures here. This is what it looks like on Elm Street, on Maple Ave. So all these cars are waiting to go into the lower lot of Maple Ave. They come down and they turn down Elm Street, going all the way down to the power station, and then also Shirley's holding some up down here that are heading, and they're all just waiting. What you're seeing in the afternoon, if school's getting out at 3 o'clock, these parents are all stacking up at 2, 2:10, 2:15, and next thing you know, we're having cars parked on Elm Street. Now, we've gone out there and said, hey, you got to keep moving, drive around the block. They drive around the block, and they come back and park, and then it just turns into kind of everybody's upset with us because we're moving them along. So, part of what we're trying to do is, based on what we've seen, is we're trying to prevent, part of the recommendation from highway safety is during school zones, drop off and pick up, we're trying to prevent the cars from going up Maple Ave. But part of that is only making it bus-only lane. So we're trying to figure out a way to not make it a do not enter, because obviously residents live up there, but also stop some of the parents from going up there during school. They can go up and around and come back down like they used to. So part of our thought process was, based on some of the rules that we can do with the manual, is we can make it a bus only during certain times. So this was actually thought about in 2017, it just never kind of came to fruition. So our thought is, do we make a town ordinance that basically says buses only during school zone time? So if it's a snow delay, it'll start at a different time, obviously like 9 o'clock in the morning, and not just 7 to 8 or 7:30 to 8:30. So the thought is to have those buses go up there and present some signage that says that, so we can have the parents kind of go around and come down Maple Ave, drop their kids off, and then they can either leave by going back up towards Heather Hill or Smith Road, or they can exit out of here. Part of the other problem is you'll see on this picture is essentially Shirley is not a crossing guard per se. She's a traffic control person, because without her, once these cars get backed up and then everybody gets backed up at Maple Ave, the cars that are waiting on Maple Ave to leave, if she's not telling them to come out and go down the street, everything gets backed up at Maple Ave, which then backs up everything onto Elm Street, similar to what's happening on Tibbetts Hill Road for Mountain View. So it's really important that we're thinking that if we can alleviate some of Shirley's problems of stopping traffic on Elm Street to let cars in, and then once they get backed up, it's just creating more of a traffic congestion. We're hoping that if we can set this up to be a bus-only lane between certain hours, that'll basically just get the buses up there, drop the kids off, and everybody can exit, and then everybody on Elm Street can try to flow through there and get to work. So that's kind of our strategy. The hope is we can start this now, work with the school district after the public hearings, if it all passes, if it goes that way, and message it out really hard in August and September.
It's going to be stop the people coming in from Smith Road.
The thought is we're not going to stop them coming down. We want them to go up into Smith Road, and maybe potentially, if you're coming from the east parts, you go up Page Hill, Heather Hill, and Winter Hill, and come back down Maple Ave. And if they can't figure that out, or they don't understand that, they can go right by Maple Ave and come up, and Smith Road and come down. So the hope is they come down Smith Road, onto Maple Ave, turn in, drop their kids off, and they either leave that way, or come down and leave through Elm Street, through Shirley. So that's kind of the thought process. So for us, we've already talked to the school district. They're on board with it. We talked to the town council. It appears that legally we're good, as the Board of Selectmen is good to make those changes. For us, that's what we're recommending, a bus-only lane during the school zone hours. And then for us, it's going to be that, if it all goes through, it's going to be us being out there like we traditionally do, and just really kind of try to help educate the motorists, message it out to the school system and our social media, and let everybody know that some things are going to change out there. We had this change when we had the no right-hand turn into the school, because that originally was people were waiting. It backed up on Elm Street years ago. So we made that town ordinance so they can't make a no right-hand turn into the school, but now they're doing it on the lower end and not the top end. So
Anybody got any questions? Go ahead.
Thank you, Chief, for the explanation. Someone who drives that every day, yes, that is a thing. So I have questions about the top part. If we were to redirect Smith Road, Heather Hill, Winter Hill, is there appropriate signage up there to kind of assist in the flow of traffic? Like, do we need additional signage up there? Has there been an assessment done of that part of the neighborhood to see if we can make the traffic flow well?
So I will tell you, as a police chief and as a father that sometimes drops his kids off, there is no particular signage that says, this way to the school, but the beginning of school, Maple Ave always sends out the alternative routes in a map. So most parents that don't want to wait on Elm Street will come up High Street, they go down Smith and hook back down Maple Ave. So there is no specific signage out there that says Maple Ave this way. I don't necessarily know if we need that. I think once folks start to realize the different route to the school, I think they'll get it.
Okay. And do you foresee any issues with people who are kind of doing what they're doing now on Elm Street, kind of parking in those neighborhoods? Do you foresee any issues with doing that? Or maybe, so another question that I had was about, if we could set up like, not a trial period, but an assistance period for Shirley, where we would add more police officers to assist her down at the bottom of the hill, and then potentially, I don't know if we'd need somebody up top or whatever you think, but maybe we put temporary sign, like, I don't know. I just want to assist in, it's going to be a learning period
Yeah.
for everyone.
So it usually is a learning period, so the beginning of every school year, we pretty much take all hands on deck approach with our police department and try to get everybody out there that's sworn. And either you're at Maple Ave, you're at the high school, we're trying to help, because you have a lot of grandparents now that are bringing their kids to school that don't know the traffic pattern, new people that are coming there from, that are first graders that don't know Maple Ave and Bartlett. So even though they message this information out a lot in their packets, a lot of parents or grandparents don't know. So we're out there to help them, let them know that. I think that part of the thought is we can try it on a trial period and see how it works. We tried that the last time, we did it and then just kind of like fizzled out and we didn't do anything with it. My other concern is, two concerns. One is if we don't have an ordinance or we don't have anything that's kind of a binding, how do we say these are the rules, we gotta, enforce them? And second thing is, when we have our officers there, when Shirley's not there, there are days that when the officers are taken away for accidents, domestics, or other law enforcement sensitive situations, there's effectively nobody there to support that whole traffic issue.
Yeah,
So-
I just meant like a trial period for extra help for the education part of it, but it sounds like you already have that
I
working.
think if we get to a point that we're working towards that and we put it in place, we most certainly can try to get as many officers there to help.
Mhm.
And then if we have signage, we can help with that as well.
And then I also wonder if we just put this into place and it works great, but if there's issues and we need to adjust, is there a way that we write that into the motion that they come back and can make adjustments outside of
We can make it, we make it a policy, Derek?
a lot of the committee?
Can we make this a policy?
Well, and that's the difficult thing is I think the chief is asking for an ordinance
So we
to
can
change
enforce it.
that and put it in, which is 2 public hearings and then a vote on a third night. So it's really almost a 6-week process to get it in place.
So we'd have to get started on it now.
Right.
And if it's in an ordinance, he can enforce to it.
I just meant
But
if we,
her problem is if it doesn't work, how do we?
Yeah.
I want them to be able to override our direction for the Highway Safety Committee to only come to us within certain timeframes of the year. I want us to be able to adjust it with the police chief's recommendations if needed, I guess is what I'm
I
trying
think
to
if there
say.
was an issue in the first week or 2 of school that this is.
Well, I think it's gonna take more than the first week or 2 to get it straightened out, during
Yeah.
the first month if everybody gets the hang of it. And I don't see any reason we couldn't put some temporary signage up that says school route or, something like that on the backside just to help people out.
If it's the board's pleasure to not do an ordinance initially, I mean, we certainly can try it. My only concern is,
It's hard to enforce it if you don't have an ordinance.
well, yeah, and the thing is we're not up there writing tickets as is with the other ones that are up there. We're trying to help educate people, say there's signage here, please don't go up there. My concern is if we start it, and then we're kind of working it out, and people start to get a hold of it and understand it, and they start doing it, are we now coming back to the board to do an ordinance to put the official signs up after the fact? Or do we just kind of leave the temporary ones there and hope that people follow the rules? And you're gonna have those stragglers who, when there's no police around, they're just gonna make that right and get stuck in
They're
traffic
gonna try
as
to
well.
beat it.
Yeah, I mean, it happens now, it's just a matter of, hopefully the masses will kind of,
I think we should do the ordinance. I just want to make sure we give the board and the chief the ability to rework it if we need to adjust it.
Well, they'll just have to come back to us. Jim?
Yep, I was thinking the same thing, but so if it, and I'm not saying it is, but if this is a terrible idea and it doesn't work,
which very well could be.
Yes.
hypothetically,
Seems
okay,
like everything's a traffic
do we have
issue.
to then do that whole public hearing and to change it and to
Do it,
make
yeah.
modifications to it?
Can we suspend it without doing all that?
I would have to ask
Yeah.
the town attorney.
I mean, if you have an ordinance, can you suspend it if it's,
I mean, I think what you could do, I'd have to look, but I almost wonder if you could put bags over the signs and then have us not enforcing it, just kind of helping reroute the traffic while we're in the process of,
reevaluating? Okay. So I would say, personally, I would think we could go ahead with the ordinance process and get that started. And if it works, fine. If it doesn't, we'll have to address it then. So,
Can I just clarify something real quick? The recommendation is for restricting the end of Maple Ave for buses only during school zone times. Is that still, that's correct? So that's-
Entering, not exiting, just entering.
Right. And the reason why we wrote it as school zone times is the way the law is written for school zone is, you know, different times, 45 minutes before the start of school and the end of school. And if I know that Brian Bulke doesn't typically do 2-hour delays, he doesn't like that, it's either you go to school or you don't. But if he does do a 2-hour delay, it doesn't lock us into like 7:30 to 8:30. But it also doesn't make it, there's another sign up there, it's 7:30 to 3:30, so there's no right-hand turns all day during school hours. So I wouldn't want to do that. Obviously, once the traffic's gone, you want your delivery people to go out there, your residents, to make it a normal structure. So really, we're just looking for that hour of the school drop-off.
I think once we say we're gonna go ahead with this, we're gonna write an ordinance, and then that'll be what will come up to us. This is, we don't have an ordinance written here
Right.
yet
Yep.
to look at, so.
No, just for public hearing.
Yeah, I think eventually we're gonna need an ordinance, something we can enforce to. The idea of doing a pilot program and trying it out, I think has merit as well. I love the idea of restricting it to buses only during the peak hours in the morning and afternoon, that makes a lot of sense. What I would hate to see happen is to force people up Maple, onto Smith, back down High into that mess down at Elm High and Main Street. So, but we'll find out if we do a pilot.
Yeah, and I think what we did look at that, and I think we saw more people exiting Maple Ave to get back on Elm Street to disperse, because I think of that specific reason. When you come down High, you're kind of stuck, and some parents try to hook a right at the popcorn stand and get to White Ave, they come that way and try to beat the traffic on Church Street, and it's, so I think, but the other thing I'm hoping is that some parents will start to see that Heather Hill, even though we'll add some traffic to that area, that's another route they can take as well. But most traffic is coming out. For the most part, we're seeing a lot of the traffic going in, dropping off, and then coming right back out onto Elm Street. So very, very limited do we see them turning right and going back up into Smith Road to come back out that way.
Mark has a question.
I like the program, I like everything I've heard so far, but my concern is if we're sending them up Smith and down High, how does the intersection at the library where they all come together, how will that be affected? Will that increase it or will it decrease it?
Well, the hope,
Good
yeah,
point, yeah.
I mean,
the hope is that we're not gonna send them back up the hill. The hope is that this is only buses going in and they can come back out onto Elm Street from Maple Ave.
So cars can come back down Maple Ave.
I understand,
Yeah,
I understand, but I'm just wondering with this change, will there be a certain amount of people, I'm gonna cut across Smith, I'm gonna cut across and come down, where we now back up?
I don't know.
Yeah,
That's something that
we won't know till it's
we'll have
done.
to see, yeah, and if
Good.
it becomes a major
Yeah.
problem, we'll have to readdress it.
Good plan, I like it, chief.
Okay, so you need a motion?
Yes, please.
So make the motion that we move to public hearing restricting the end of Maple Ave at Elm Street for buses only entering during school zone times.
Second.
Motion by Kelly, seconded by Mark. Any further discussion? Yep.
Yeah, so just so I understand, are you gonna start doing this before it becomes part of an ordinance?
So, right now, the way the timing works is we might actually have the ordinance, if it goes through, in play, or at least starting to, before school starts. So we'll be able to get with the school district and have them start to message it out, and us will start doing our messaging as well. So the hope is that by the time the first week of school shows up, we'll already have this in place.
I'm just thinking, I can't think of any liability issues, but they may be out there, and I would feel better if we could wait until the ordinance is in place for everybody's sake, but.
Yeah, the hope is if we were to go this route, that we get it now and get it started, because we're on a timeline to September for their.
Technically, I think we got the time to do it.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, we have 2 meetings in July for the public hearings and then adoption in August.
Okay. Anything else, Chief?
That's it.
All right, thank you.
Very much.
think next thing is new business, would that be accurate? Did we vote?
I think I have old business first. Oh, no, yes, we do have new business, I'm sorry.
Got me confused there, buddy.
I was, what's actually in the packet, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so Mark, you had something you wanted to bring up on the new business?
I did. I have two items tonight, Mr. Chair. The first one we'll talk about is the pay for the the people that work the elections, the budget, the people that help to do everything. I just randomly went online and I asked for a survey, and I got numbers back: Nottingham $10, Piermont $7.25, Lyme $7.25, Hopkinton $9, Hudson $9, New Boston $10, and the highest one was Chester, New Hampshire, which was $12.60 per hour. I know in years past, we've had a lot of questions as to how and why don't we bring it up a couple bucks or whatever. So with the help of Derek, you need one of these, or?
Yeah. So currently, right now, we pay election workers at the polls on election day $7.25 an hour. And Selectman Lemay asked me to run numbers for $9 an hour, and I also provided $10 an hour. So you'll see the two columns there, and in the upper right, highlighted in that green cell, is the approximate increase if you were to make this change prior to the state primary and the general election, based on the fact that Kathy has budgeted $6,000 for the state primary and $10,000 for the general election for the part-time wages.
So I wasn't really aware of that until Derek produced that to me this afternoon, but I'm still, as far as money, we'd have to, is there money in the budget that we could take?
There's no money in the election budget,
Yeah,
but there are other potential lines that if the board made that decision, I could work with Danielle to identify.
So I'm asking the board tonight if we could go to $9 an hour and hopefully alleviate some of the problems we have finding people and having people come into work. I hear people say, I hear it in Bernardville because I work there all the time, it's not worth coming in for the $7.25 an hour, it's not worth coming in, too many headaches, too many this, too many that. And I said, well, how do you want me to correct the situation? They say to me, well, bring it up to 9, 10, I've heard as high as 15, but we'll never go 15. Not in my lifetime, I guarantee you that. But I'm looking at this board to see if we could go to $9 an hour.
Call us you.
So, well, my first question is, are we having problems getting people to work at the polls? Or are we just increasing their pay because?
No, we're having problems. Kathy and the staff are already looking for people to work the upcoming elections. And speaking to Kathy on Friday, they're struggling to find people, and I'm looking for a way to maybe make that struggle not as hard and allow the people that are willing to work and want to work to come in for $9 an hour. And I mean, I know it sounds like a drastic increase, but.
So have we done any survey to find out if this would solve that problem? Say, hey, if we were to increase it, would you be more willing to work the polls? I mean, are we just?
Personally, I think this is a budget item, and it should be, we shouldn't circumvent the budget process and go through the budget committee. I understand what Mark's saying, and I'm not sure that I've seen that it's that bad of a problem, or Kathy said anything to us, but I guess we should have Kathy come in and say,
Yeah.
you know, but just to arbitrarily do this and like this is, without going through the proper procedure, isn't right. It doesn't put a good flavor in the budget committees when you go past them like that.
I agree with that, but I just would like to see some data that would support the fact that, you know, we can't get, here's how many times we've been left short with
Yeah.
poll workers.
No, I
If we were to raise it based upon interviews and
understand.
surveys, if we were to raise it, we'd have better luck getting people.
With the-
So it's justified.
With the changes coming, there are going to be changes in the upcoming election, and it may require a little bit more
Yeah.
staff, but I mean, yeah, Kathy, if this is what the wish of the board is for
But
Kathy.
if you're saying now that you're gonna need more staff, that's what you just said, that would change these numbers here also.
it-
We're
Yes,
basing this on
yes, it-
previous staff.
It would, it
More
would.
elections.
So, go ahead, Kelly, I know you were gonna ask. a question.
Well, first and foremost, I just wonder if this should be included in, when we have discussions about non-union wages, this be like a subset wage conversation that we have on more of a consistent basis, so that it's just brought up automatically when we have our budget discussions. I don't know the last time we actually changed it, but just a thought. My other question is this, on the bottom that says, costs do not include hourly rate for machine setup, supervisors of the checklist, and other hours outside of election day.
So that would cover, when we set the machines up, we bring all 5 of the machines in this room. We have a group of people sit here, they do all the ballots in 100 different ways. We run them in the machines, we set the machines up, and we count all the ballots in packets.
Yeah, no, I know, I mean, I know the processes, I'm just wondering why these people wouldn't also be included. Is there a difference in wages now, and why wouldn't we include them if we're having issues with volunteers?
Supervisor of the checklist we changed, was it last year or the year before?
Supervisor checklists get a monthly stipend,
Stipend.
as well as on election day, they're paid for hours worked.
Okay.
Under this rate?
The 725, yes.
Yeah, okay. So Mark, you should be careful talking about that.
So
Just
the-
saying, you
Yeah,
know.
no, I understand, but, I mean,
So
I
would
can
that
I can
include,
honestly speak and say that they're not looking for any more money. They're happy where they're at, and they just wanna, they wanna get their job done. We're looking and talking, or I'm talking tonight about the people that are at the elections on the rail on the inside, working.
Yep, no, I understand, I just wonder why we wouldn't include the machine setup people, and
I
would
think
this,
that'd be a minimal amount, that tends to be maybe 6 hours, at most 10 people. So if
Yeah.
you're talking $1.75, you're not talking a lot.
I just
and-
think we
Couple
should
$100
look at the whole thing if we're
Okay.
gonna do it, and I think we should include it on an annual review process. But I also think that we should just put this into the budget, and then how many elections we have next year into our budget. But Mark, your request is to make this increase for this year?
If it doesn't happen this year, I mean, we talked about this last year, a couple months ago, and it kind of just fell by the wayside, nothing happened. And I don't want it to fall by the wayside.
Yep.
I want the people that deservingly should get the money because they're devoted to the town and work in the town.
I agree with you, and to Collis's
Yeah,
point, if we are gonna circumvent the process, I know that's not your intention, but I'd like to see some data
Yeah.
on why we would need to do that
Yeah.
instead of just rolling it into our budget presentation for
No,
this year.
Peter, I don't think we have enough information. I think we ought to table this until we can
Okay.
get that information, bring it back.
All right, now, Mark, you also had on here election trailer?
Yes, while I was here Friday, Kathy was asking me about the trailer that we had talked about to put all of the election stuff in, rather than have to drag it out of the jail cell, bring it over here, up the elevator. We could cut a lot of labor in half by storing it in the trailer and keeping it there ready to go. Unfortunately, I didn't have time to make copies, but I'll submit this to Derek. I went and called 4 different places today, and I got prices on trailers, just so that the board is aware again.
What size trailer did you ask for?
18 by 7, 17 by 18. Tandem,
Eight-
18 by 7.
18 by 7.
Yeah.
18 feet long, 7 feet
Yeah,
wide.
yeah, and that is from the request of Roger Filto and Mike Garrett from DPW, who, Parks and Rec, who load everything into the trailers. They're asking for a tandem wheeled trailer, something that will hold anywhere between 7,000 and 10,000 pounds of weight, depending on what goes in there. They're talking about changing the voting machines, making them bigger, heavier, whatever's in there. It's just, it's quite a chore to take it up and down at the end of the night and the following day. I mean, you've seen it, we've all seen it lined up on the floor over here. We could put it in there, leave it in there, and, like, I went to Hawks trailer in town here, I went to Ron's Toy Shop, and then I went to other two out of the area, Central New Hampshire Trailers on 106, and Trailer Outlet in Laconia. And they all range between the areas of 10,000, 12,000, 13,000. I was advised pretty much by Hawks to stay away from a steel frame trailer, only because they sit and would rot away. We would probably be looking for a new trailer pretty quick, pretty fast. He said, if you're gonna look for a trailer, look for an aluminum one, so that it will stay and work with us. And again, I'm not looking for motion tonight, but we have to get the ball rolling, only because we have 2 elections this year. Next year, we could have 2 more plus election, and again, as Peter said, we gotta find the money, we have to look for the money. Whether we have it in the budget from a different line, who knows? It just, they're asking for help, and I said I'd help them.
Call us.
So I understand the problem and the logistics behind all of it. It is pretty complex trying to deal with these elections. So would the concept be to store all this stuff in the trailer, secure it under lock and key,
Correct.
and then store the trailer in a secure location like the police department or someplace, or?
If they
is
are
that-
willing, if they are willing to let us do it, yes,
Okay.
there,
Okay.
or even DPW,
Yeah.
somewhere.
My concern in that kind of, I store my snowmobiles in a trailer similar to what he's talking
Yep.
about. And then just condensation builds up in there, and what's that gonna do with voting machines, and how are they acting now?
The machines or tabulators would not be stored
Yeah,
there.
they're in Kathy's office. Kathy has a box.
Oh, okay.
It's 3x4 or whatever. They're all.
So this is all the
Signs,
stanchions, the
Signs,
signs,
yep.
the guard
Yep.
things that,
Yep,
okay,
yep. So,
that helps, thank you.
I mean, they're,
So I think this one should go right in, because this is a CIP item technically, because it's got wheels.
Yeah.
And I think we should insert it into the 2023 CIP budget.
Get the process started.
Yeah, I mean, it's not gonna be cheap, like you said, somewhere between 10 and 13,000,
yep.
you know?
And then, like, the guy from Hawks said trailers, like everything else, are going up. And I mean, you don't buy it now, you're gonna pay for it later, whatever, however, but, I mean,
We could say that about anything
oh,
we're
most
buying,
certainly,
unfortunately.
most certainly, you know.
Do we currently have any trailers like this that are sitting? Would that impact the kind of insurance that we would get on something like this? Do you have any idea?
I think the only trailer we have approximately this size is the paint trailer that DPW uses, and,
You can't store anything in that thing if you cover it
Yeah.
in paint.
Okay, just curious.
That's it, I mean.
All right, so I think we need to target this for our 2023 budget anyway. Would you agree?
yeah, I can add this and bring this as an addition to CIP, as we're still active in the CIP process, and bring that to a future meeting.
Jim will speak for it.
Sure. No, I think it's a good idea.
Yeah. Oh, no,
I
don't
mean,
talk.
I mean, the 2 people that suffer the most are Roger and Mike. I mean, they unload it, I mean, there are other people, but they have the majority.
Brad's there too usually.
They unload it, yeah, they unload it from there, and upstairs, downstairs, back and forth, that's all I'm saying. And that we gotta recognize that it's a need or an issue and, or a want, and I'm bringing it forward to the committee.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Anything else on the new business, anybody? See, now we'll move to old business, and first up is the old business, the draft policy in the Parks and Rec electronic message center use policy. And that is 8B.
Yeah, so this was discussed at your last meeting, and there were some requests for some
Clarification,
adjustments.
yeah.
So I tried to make those requests. I know there was a question about inappropriate language. I couldn't quite honestly find a policy that had a good example of what would be deemed inappropriate. Therefore, kind of put that back on the Director of Parks and Rec, who would be overseeing this. And if he were to deem something inappropriate and say, no, we're not gonna post that. You basically set up this board as almost an appellate board where somebody could say, you know, we really do want this select board to be able to make the decision of whether or not to post the message.
I think these changes are good. Did you just go over them with Rick? I know he was involved in the process.
Yes.
So he's
Yep.
good with this? Okay.
Yep, I went over them with Rick, and he's aware of those, yes.
And then does this need to go back to the commissioners, or do we?
If you were agreeable to the proposed changes, you could adopt this policy. Start, Parks and Rec could start working under it.
Peter, I think this, if I can, I think this is much improved.
Yeah.
I like it a lot better. Just something that's a little curious, and it's not a big deal, that says the minimum time is 2 weeks. So if somebody came in and requested 1 week, we'd say, sorry, you have to put it up for 2. Or is there a process?
No, if the board would like to reduce that, we could, I think
I
it's
just-
just really the staff time. The biggest thing is, we can't guarantee that if somebody comes and says, I meet all the criteria, I want my message up for an event tomorrow, Aaron or Rick might not even be available to put that up. So I
Yeah.
think that's why we tried to put some type of minimum. But again, if you wanted to reduce that or make that waivable by the Parks and Rec director, I don't think
Yeah, I
that's
think
an
that should
issue.
be waivable. It's
Their
just-
discretion or something?
Yeah, it just seems awkward that says it's a minimum, it's 2 weeks, so
Does it, I'm trying to find here, is there a
process.
process of how long before they want to have something on the board? You can't walk in and say, I'd like to put this up tomorrow.
Yes.
Yeah.
Where is that? I know it, I thought I read it
Oh,
before.
It's on the
right
second page, it should be submitted, I chose the word should be submitted 2 weeks prior to when the message needs
Okay,
to
that's okay.
begin running. But we can reduce that,
No, I mean, that's reasonable. If we're gonna have, there's something we gotta figure out how to function and,
Well, good to give them time too,
Yeah,
to set
right,
it
it
up.
gives them a chance to.
Should is not a mandatory word, though.
correct, yes,
So,
yep.
okay, so there's flexibility, okay.
But that's different, this says the minimum time it'll be on the board. Why do we have a minimum time at all? Why don't we just,
You don't have to, you could completely,
yeah, somebody
take,
just
strike
say,
that sentence if the board prefers.
I only want a message up there for 4 days, for whatever reason. Yeah, I understand the maximum for sure.
I trust Rick and Aaron to manage the time things, I think. we can do that.
So if the board's okay, I'll strike
I
that
think-
first sentence.
Yeah, I think we
Yep.
strike that sentence.
So somebody, technically now, somebody could come in 2 weeks ahead of time and say, on August 1st, I want the message to read this for 1 day.
Yes, it's my understanding that the programming allows them to choose the length of time of
Okay.
how long it's not somebody manually going in there and pulling the message down from talking.
I'm
to
just
the member.
concerned that then they're gonna be right on top of it to change the message the next day. Or can they program messages to move along?
They can, it's, from talking to Aaron and Rick, they can program it to turn off at a certain point.
Okay. I'm good with it.
Okay, yeah.
Do we have a motion?
Yes, please.
I move we adopt the Parks and Rec electronic message center use policy as we amended this evening, as presented and
Second.
amended.
Second.
Motion by Jim, seconded by Collis. Any more discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, motion passes. E-bikes.
Yes, at your last meeting, you had a question about e-bikes. In 2019, there was a change to state law, and I did include a copy of that law that classified, designated 3 classes of e-bikes. A class 1, which has an electric motor that provides assistance only when the rider is pedaling, and it ceases to provide assistance when the e-bike reaches 20 miles an hour. Class 2, it's equipped with throttle actuated electric motor that may be used to provide assistance, again, up until 20 miles an hour. And then class 3, which is an electric motor, provides assistance only when the rider is pedaling, and then it ceases to provide assistance when the e-bike reaches 28 miles per hour. So this law change basically classified class 1 and 2 e-bikes, those that stop providing assistance at 20 miles an hour. It allows them on multi-use paths where bicycles are permitted unless the town prohibits their use. So I would say under your current rail trail ordinance, because bicycles are allowed, class 1 and class 2 e-bikes that provide assistance up to 20 miles an hour are currently allowed on the rail trail. Class 3 e-bikes shall not be ridden on multi-use paths unless a town does have the ability to allow it. So I would say under your current ordinance, class 1 and class 2 are permitted under that 2019 state law change, but class 3s are not. I did talk to Paula Bedard of the Bike Walk Alliance, New Hampshire Bike Walk Alliance, as well as David Pierce from the Friends of the Goffstown Rail Trail about this issue. I've provided you with a proposed change to the rail trail ordinance that specifies that class 1 and class 2 e-bikes would be allowed with biking, and that class 3 e-bikes would not be allowed. Just for clarification, I also included off-highway recreational vehicles and snowmobiles. Currently, we only have motorized vehicles. And that would basically allow, just for a little bit of clarification on the ordinance, for how you are currently, how the ordinance is currently written. Again, those class 1 and class 2 are allowed under that 2019 change. If the board had a preference to remove all e-bikes, you could do that, and we would just have to move those certain classes to prohibited activities. But again, right now, that 2019 law change, you are, in fact, the ordinance allows class 1 and class 2.
We're talking 20 miles an hour.
Yes.
Except for one thing. Our policy at this time is no motorized vehicles.
It allows for bicycles, and the way the state law reads is a class 1 and class 2 e-bike can be used on a multi-use path
Yeah.
where bicycles are allowed. So I would say if the police stopped someone with a class 1 or class 2 and issued a summons, it most likely would not be enforceable.
Unless we don't allow it.
Right.
Yes, that would be my recommendation.
Yes.
If you wanted to take out those class 1, class 2, you should specifically call them out under the prohibitions, if that's the board's
Because
pleasure.
on this one over here, that you passed out and I also forwarded to you, it says, EMTBs may not be allowed on trails managed for non-motorized activities, which I thought, and our current was a non-motorized when that rail trail was passed. It specifically was non-motorized vehicles. So I'm kind of conflicted here on which is what. If we currently have no motorized vehicles, as what that was adopted when we built that rail trail, isn't that still in effect?
It is, again, this is a informational flyer from peopleforbikes.org, and where the law specifically says that it shall be they shall be allowed, the same as bicycles, class 1 and class 2. I just worry that they would be allowed under that 2019 change. So I'd say if the board's pleasure is to not have them, then I think rather than just having non-motorized, it would be better to list them out as what you are prohibiting.
What is it that you're referring to? Because it's not an ordinance, is it? No,
Yes.
the original rail trail document.
Yes,
Yeah.
it's in your packet, it's a couple
Which-
pages
This
back,
one.
yes. It was called the Pre-Development Rail Trail Ordinance, it was adopted in 2005.
It
And
is an ordinance.
it is an ordinance that was adopted by the select board.
So Peter, since this is an ordinance, we'll have to go through the public hearing process, and I'd like to hear from the public how they feel about this.
Well, if we change it, if we don't change it, because as
I
it stands
understand. No,
now,
I understand, but the way it's being presented, it's a new ordinance.
well, yeah, if you decide to go ahead with a new,
Right,
we
right.
have to decide, this group has to decide if we want to allow e-bikes on the trail. And then we have to make sure that the police department has the ability to go over and say, this is a class 1, class 2, things like that. I mean, it's a whole, you're opening up a whole can of worms.
You're saying there's already prohibited anyways, right? So we don't have to do
Yeah, but it hasn't
anything.
been spelled out. Now they're asking us to spell it out, is what you're saying.
I'm saying right now, a prohibited activity includes motorized vehicles. However, when we look at that 2019 law that talks about e-bikes, it specifically states that Class 1 and Class 2, unless the town prohibits,
So wouldn't that-
they are allowed. So because the board prohibited motorized vehicles, is that prohibiting e-bikes or not? And I think it would be clearer to
Go one way or the other.
go one way or the other and
I agree.
and pull it out.
I'm concerned about the e-bikes only because Manchester's now renting them out down there, and they're coming across the bridge. I see them when I'm down there on my boat and coming into town, and then we'll be chasing them up and down the rail trail, you know?
I see them too, but I wonder, my only concern is for the, ADA accessibility of the use of the rail trail for people with disabilities to use them, or people who need assistance riding a bike. I mean, is this the only provision, the 20 mile per hour? Like, I know nothing about e-bikes and the speeds and all of that,
I guess I'm not seeing that, Cal. I mean, if people need assistance riding a bike, this doesn't prohibit a three-wheel bike.
No, but I meant just the use of the extra assistance for people with disabilities and elderly people. I mean, I know a couple people who have them for that reason. I don't know if they ride them on the rail trail, but I mean, I don't know. It's the only thing I could think of.
I know
where
a couple
we
of guys that
wouldn't.
have them because I don't have a license anymore.
The other thing that I had asked Derek about, and we couldn't find anything, was that the electronic skateboards in some states have been pushed into the bike laws, but they haven't been in New Hampshire. So would that also include, the one-wheel things
That
that
guy
I see them
drives flies down the road.
I see a ton of them on the rail trail, so would that also be included?
If it has a motor on it, it would.
You know, 20
Chief,
mi-
you want to come up, put 2 cents in?
20 miles an hour is not slow. When you're on a trail with people walking and.
Yeah, but I'll let her comment there in public comment. That's next anyway.
Derek, can I speak at some point too?
It'll be up to the chair, so Paula Bedard is here.
Okay.
Well, Mr. Chair, I think that Derek has pretty much spelled it out to what I was thinking as well. I think that these type of ordinance change, or at least look at them, are worth it, because as technology changes and things kind of evolve, when I think of the town ordinance that was written years ago, e-bikes were not in existence, and it was really geared towards the dirt bikers, the four-wheelers, just coming up and down, or cars driving besides the rail trail people. As far as the enforcement of this, I would really like it to be cleared out, clearly stated for us. I think once we get officers that are riding their bicycles in the rail trail, and we're taking complaints as well, there's an e-bike and that's a motorized vehicle, aren't you guys doing anything about that? There is a little bit of a discussion, and I think that if we start handing out summonses, Captain Conley's gonna have his hands full trying to figure out what he's gonna do at court with this. So I think if we can, as a board, make a decision one way or the other, as Derek has indicated, I think that'll make it easier for us to go out there and kind of help educate the public as well. And I think based on what I'm reading, when it comes to the different classifications, it looks like in the RSAs, at least in our RSA, that the manufacturers are supposed to have a label, almost like a VIN number type, on that vehicle that says Class 1, Class 2, Class 3, and if they tamper with it, that's another issue there. So I think that might be easier for us to kind of identify which bike is an E1 or E2 or E3 class. So.
Okay. So you have had some issues.
We've had people ask us questions on, are e-bikes allowed to be on the rail trail? Are we allowed to ride this, motorized wheelchair? Are we allowed to ride, these different power wheels, things of that nature? We're not pulling kids over on their power wheels. But I think those are legitimate questions as we're seeing technology evolve that people are going to start asking.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
Anybody else? Cool. I'm sorry, did you want to come up and speak? And you are
I'm Paula Bedard.
from?
I live in Goffstown. I
Uh-huh.
also am the board president of the Bike Walk Alliance of New Hampshire.
Uh-huh.
I'm also a member of the New Hampshire Rail Trails Coalition. I'm formerly a board member. There was a period of time where I was on the board of directors for the Friends of the Goffstown Rail Trail. Do a lot of work with the Goffstown Rail Trail. So I'm also part of the team that put together the New Hampshire law on e-bikes. So if I can, I'd like to try and help answer any questions you may have about e-bikes, the New Hampshire law, what other states are doing, what other rail trails are doing. I can even give you some feedback on these other devices that you see on the rail trails, like the Uniball and the motorized scooters. As board president of the Bike Walk Alliance and New Hampshire Rail Trail Coalition, and just an active participant in Goffstown Rail Trail, we actively watch these issues and we're paying attention to what everyone else is doing. And like I said, I was part of the team that wrote the verbiage in the law that you see today before you. Currently what rail trails in New Hampshire are doing, the majority of rail trails are moving towards adding the verbiage that clarifies Class 1, Class 2 e-bikes are allowed on rail trails. I'd like to keep this discussion to rail trails because that's what we're talking about here, is the possibility of updating the ordinance for the Goffstown Rail Trail. And just like the Chief of Police, Goffstown Police, and Friends of the Goffstown Rail Trail, Bike Walk Alliance, we get tons of questions all the time. People are so confused. Can I ride my e-bike on the rail trail? So the short answer is we should really be fully embracing and adopting Class 1, Class 2 e-bikes on rail trails. It's the Class 3s, the higher powered, that we really want to make sure they're prohibited in most cases. I mean, there may be a case or two where some rail trails are allowing the Class 3s, but right now the trend, the general thinking is to avoid allowing Class 3s on the rail trails. So I'd also like to speak a little bit about the terminology, no motorized vehicles, right? That's what we see. We get this discussion, this argument all the time. It's what confuses people the most. It's the verbiage that was originally in place and is still in place appropriately, as Chief of Police pointed out, intentionally to prohibit dirt bikes, ATVs, OHRVs, right? That's, gas-powered, loud, noisy, fast, vehicles that are not at all appropriate for sharing on a rail trail. So we need to keep that no motorized vehicle terminology there. It's true that Class 1, Class 2 e-bikes have very small electric motors, like 1 horsepower. However, with all the federal level laws and state laws that have been put in place, they are categorized as being more like bicycles than motor vehicles. They make no noise, they're not gas powered, they have no emissions, they're totally appropriate for use on a rail trail. We see them all the time. I use the rail trail almost every day. I live very close to it. I use it for commuting into work for 12 years into Manchester. I see people riding e-bikes appropriately. So just because you see someone riding an e-bike, it should be the bad behavior is what you want to prohibit, going too fast, whether you're riding an e-bike or a regular bike. So just because you might see someone riding an e-bike, it shouldn't be like, that person needs a citation. So I hope that as this process moves along, that there'll be a better understanding of the Class 1, Class 2 e-bikes, and the understanding that rail trails in New Hampshire are starting to do this same process, update their ordinances to be more clear. I can give you an example like the Northern Rail Trail, 57-mile rail trail, which goes from Boscawen to Lebanon, totally adopting Class 1, Class 2 e-bikes. They've got e-bike rental shops all along their rail trail. It's going beautifully. There's really no issues. So if there were issues, we would be concerned. And when I say we, I mean Bike Walk Alliance, New Hampshire Rail Trail Coalition. The only thing we're seeing is that it's allowing more people to ride bikes.
Is there any data on accidents with e-bikes on the trails?
There's very little data on that. First of all, we're not seeing it, number one. If I could point to any articles, I would forward them to you. We're not
Is the northern
seeing
trail
it.
paved?
It is not, it's a
It's not.
gravel surface, yeah. Keep in mind that it's a totally different issue if you're talking about mountain bike trails. We're not talking about mountain bike trails, we're just concerned with updating the ordinance for the rail trail. And devices like the scooters, that discussion is less evolved than the e-bike discussion. E-bikes are considered transportation vehicles, and those micro-mobility devices, the scooters, motorized scooters, those are currently categorized as toys, literally, not recreation, not transportation devices. So they're sort of, the only ordinance I know that's been updated for electric scooters is, for example, City of Nashua was having problems with electric scooters on sidewalks. They decided to prohibit them on sidewalks, updated the RSA and signage. So that's just an example of like, things are starting to evolve as we see more and more of these devices in our communities.
Jim, you had a question?
I did. This rail trail goes all the way, I've never done it, but I heard all the way to the coast, but are we different from like Manchester and Auburn or wherever it goes all the way down? Can you go to one spot on a class 3 or class 2 and then you can't
Yeah.
go in?
So what I can tell you is that, like, I know I'm in discussions with New Boston Rail Trail, Louise Roby. As far as I know, they have not bothered to update their ordinance, but I know that Louise Roby is they're accepting of e-bikes on their rail trail. You know, they're happy that the 2019 law clearly says they're passed. I don't think town of New Boston has bothered to update their signage. Similar with Manchester, they're just sort of, they're letting it lie until they have problems. And no one's really seeing any problems right now. We're seeing confusion where people are like, hey, you know, that person's riding an e-bike, is that allowed? So we're seeing the confusion, but not really any conflicts.
Mark, do you have a question?
Just to add to your question, Jim, a lot of the trails now are paved. When we leave Goffstown, we get to Manchester, it's paved. We get to Auburn, they're paved. Londonderry is paved, Derry is paved. I think Nashua is paved.
Some of it.
Some of it. The majority of the trails that are out there today are paved. And I think it's a safer way to go. We just can't afford to get our trails paved yet, but I mean, just to add to your thing, and I mean, class 1 or class 2, I rode one a couple weeks ago in Maine. I think they're a nice little bike to ride, and go from there. But if you're looking for a motion, I'm gonna make a motion.
Well, hold on, let me bring it down. Karen's got a question.
I have a question. Ms. Bedard, you specifically mentioned that the thought with the organizations that you're involved with is to embrace class 1 and 2. Can you just talk specifically to that question
Sure.
on why that's the notion to
Yep.
embrace those?
I can. So class 1 and class 2, class 3 as well, but one of the terms that's used to refer to that technology is it's really pedal assist technology. For example, one of the reasons why class 1s are so easily accepted is because you have to be pedaling to get the assist. It has no throttle, you have to be pedaling to get some assistance, and it cuts out once you reach 20 miles an hour. Class 2 is similar in that it cuts out at 20, but it does have a throttle, and if you want to go by power of the bike only and not pedal, it does have that capability. So the class 1s and class 2s are really just more easily accepted by the general public, and in committees like this where we're trying to explain, that the technology is not to be feared. We encourage people to try one if they ever get a chance. We do have a local business owner, landowner here in Goffstown who does have an interest in the possibility of adding an e-bike rental business on the rail trail. So that person has a vested interest in finding out, just getting this clarification and making sure people understand the laws. And this brochure is a good summary of the laws. If you're interested, I can pass those around or send you the link.
Anybody else? Jim?
Just, I'm curious, our policy that we're looking at here, well, you probably don't have it in front of you, but it looks to me like someone in a motorized wheelchair or something could not launder that.
No, they can. So there's really an overarching, it may not be specified
And my
specific.
question is, should we put those kind of things into our policy?
That would be wonderful. We literally, Bike Walk Alliance, we hear from people who have to travel by motorized devices, and they frequently say to us, could you please add, the verbiage, and I could provide you with the verbiage that's like, not too wordy but accurate, because we have had requests for that to add it. The higher level laws do allow for that, but it's a really good thing to add. I know the people in that community really appreciate it and are asking for it.
Thank you.
You all set, Jim? So they usually put age restrictions on them?
So the age restriction is only for the Class 3. You have to be, I think it's 16 years or older to be able to operate a Class 3. Yeah, anywhere, either on a road
Right.
or, yeah,
But nothing on the 1s and 2s?
correct.
And the class 3 also has a helmet provision, but nothing
Right.
on, okay.
Nothing on 1 and 2, even
No,
though they go
no.
up to 20 miles an
Well,
hour?
Class 1 and 2 are, and it does stay in here, it's in there, but Class 1 and 2 are required to follow the same current New Hampshire state law for helmets, which is 15 and under required to wear helmets. So riding, you're 15 or younger, you're riding a Class 1 or a Class 2, you are required to wear a helmet, but adults are not. That's same thing for
Do we need to
regular
add that to this?
I don't think so, because my fear would be that there may be some update to New Hampshire law on helmets for bicycles and those class 1 and 2, and again, it's hard to keep up with those updates, whereas this would just refer to those.
Well, how does the chief enforce it if there's no?
I think he probably would have enforcement powers under the bicycle laws now, if he needed to.
Go ahead, Cal.
I have one more question. Just looking at this list of things prohibited activities include but are not limited to, I think it's a pretty good all-encompassing list for the things that we see on the rail trail. My only question is, should we add something about fires? Because we have had people starting campfires, especially in that little cove area by Angel's Landing. Angel's
But on
Point.
the rail trail?
Well, in that area. Do you know what I mean? Would that be included in that? Should we just add
That's just
fires
under the fire
prohibited?
permit laws anyway, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
It had nothing to do with the rail trail usage. That would just be in the fire rules.
It says not limited to. That was the only thing I could think
Yeah.
of that's come up. That's not on here. Just throwing that up there. That's it.
Anything else?
Well,
No, I'm sorry,
is there a motion yet?
not yet.
So I think I would like to see some verbiage in here about the mechanized handicap thing. If you have link, I think we ought
Motorized
to
wheelchairs.
put that in there. So
Yeah, I agree.
You want to
So-
get together and do that?
So if it's the board's preference, I can work with Paula and provide another draft to you at your next meeting, and then you could make a
That'd be great.
decision on whether or not you wanted to
Sure.
move forward to public hearing for an ordinance
I'd
change.
appreciate that.
Yeah, that would be great.
okay, good.
That was very helpful. Thank you
Great.
for
Thank you.
adding that info.
If you have any other questions, reach out. Thank you.
Anything else under old? This is old business, right?
Yes.
I think it's fair to make mention, which we had many letters this week. I don't know if you all seen them that came in reference to our flag policy. And I think it needs to be mentioned that there were some very, I wouldn't say not nice, but some with very biased opinions of what we should have done. And I'm not sure if we shouldn't reconsider, take a look at that flag policy again, because I don't think it was reflective of the total community. That's my idea, but I think you all need to think about it, and we bring it up for reconsideration eventually. Kelly?
We put the policy on hold because we were looking for, what were we putting it on hold for?
No, you adopted the
We
policy at
adopted
your
the
meeting.
policy.
But you said not to, we weren't gonna adopt anything else until we revisited, right? That was in the minutes.
I'd have to look at the minutes. I
Okay.
don't recall.
Because I know we were gonna go back to it, but, I mean, we did receive a lot of good feedback as well, so I think if
Yeah,
we
but-
can
Yeah, we think,
add to the parameters, that would be good.
right. Jim, you
Well, I was
want,
gonna say, I had the misgivings when we discussed it, and they brought up those misgivings, and I think there's some valid points that we need to look at, and I think you felt the same way. when we
I think,
did
yeah,
that.
so,
I think it's just, it gives us too much, it's a place I don't wanna be, making those kind of decisions.
well, I think it caused a problem in the community, a divisiveness in the
Right.
community that we don't really need to have, and something like that shouldn't have done that.
Yeah.
We shouldn't be making policies that make things divisive in the community.
Yeah, and I agree. My comment at the time was we're gonna experience some growing pains with this, and that's exactly what we're going through, is some growing pains, so to me, it's a work in progress. But Peter, if I can just circle back on the e-bike
Go ahead.
ordinance, in the draft, just an editorial comment on the signature page, change Chet Bowen vice chair to Kelly Boyer vice chair.
Oh, because that was the one that was adopted, right?
No, that was not. That's
Oh, you
probably
forgot.
still.
We're not doing anything with this tonight anyway.
Editorial, it's editorial though.
Yeah, but that,
Before it's
Thanks,
adopted.
when it
Colin.
comes up
Forgot
to
about
it, we will make sure. Okay, anything else under old business?
Just the matrix,
Huh?
just the matrix.
Yeah. We have the MAC action matrix is next. Any updates on any of that stuff, Derek? Your
No,
board?
not this evening, no.
Policy working group? Kelly?
Nope, we had, I'm gonna propose a new potential format. It's just been very hard for the department heads to coordinate with them and themselves and scheduling time, which we thought it might be, so I think we have a new idea. So I'll bring that to the next meeting.
Okay. Call us? Anything on the bridge?
I spoke with Andy Cataret, who is the chair of the ad hoc committee on that. He was gonna contact you about scheduling.
He did, yep, he
Okay.
reached out to me. We'll have to, I do have this up on the website now, so we'll reach out for,
Okay.
so those volunteers from the last ad hoc committee.
Thank you.
And town vehicle equipment, boy, oh boy, we got some equipment that's down right now.
Yeah, we do.
DPW is probably the worst. Looks like you got, what, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 pieces down right now.
And they're all a week out or more or less.
Yep, 1 to 2 weeks, 1 to
Yep.
2 weeks.
What's a wheel motor on the Bobcat? What is that?
Damn, I thought I was gonna get out of this.
The way the skid steers work, they have independent motors for each side, so you can make one go forward, one go back. So it's
So right now, it's just going
Yeah,
circles.
It's a motor on one, just one motor on one side.
more skid than steer.
Do you have a picture?
I can get one if you like.
Thanks.
Anything else?
Can I just ask one
Yep.
question about, Collis, this says EDC and Rotary have appointed representatives. Was there one other community group that was gonna appoint someone? I can't remember who we
I
decided.
believe it was Main Street.
Oh, okay, maybe that was it, yep.
I believe that
Yep.
it would be in the charter.
Is the revised charter up on the website?
That is not, I tried to put that up there today, and there was an issue with that, but we'll get that up there this week. But it does have its own webpage now.
Good, thank you.
Anything else under the action matrix? Action matrix? See nothing? Call for anybody here for public comment. Come right up, sir, state your name and address. Bill. Our public comment is limited to 3 minutes, just to let you know, Bill.
I came to the meeting over
Give your
the
name for the record, just,
William Mackenzie, Tipping Rock Road.
go right ahead, Bill. Mr. Lee.
I see there was some confusion over the pride flags, which right off the bat, I would say I'm opposed to the pride flags and the political movement that it represents. I don't know whether anybody can name a positive outcome of anything that the present administration in DC has done. Not much. So I don't think it's proper to consider it as precedent that if the president is urged to announce Pride Month should be celebrated, there's no legitimacy to that statement. With all that's going wrong, it deserves to be searched out and questioned. I don't think that any taxpayer money in the form of lending lampposts or whatever should be used to encourage a political movement that Pride, represents. Heritage Foundation did a study on the recent H.R. 5, the Equality, so-called Equality Act, and it's anything but equality. It's a force-fed. When I say that, the heavy hands of the political lobbyists in Washington have forced the language into the act. One of the items that Heritage brings up, it would provide legal support for a radical school curriculum teaching sexual preferences and transgender theory to elementary and pre-K children. In states where this curriculum is currently being taught, it is integrated into all subjects, and parents cannot opt their children out. So children, captive children, must sit there and get this indoctrination. We know that to mutilate a child who's still an adolescent age, they're confused about life. We all were at those early ages. To encourage a medical procedure that is permanent is criminal, and more people are recognizing this. And the state of Virginia, we saw the parents rising up and things turn upside down. And this is happening across the country. When I was on the school board here, things were happening then. And I wrote about it publicly. You can look up the old letters that I wrote to the local paper. But we had local effort with a questionnaire, for instance, invasive type questions, asking students about their sex life.
Bill, I'll let you go over a little bit more than 3 minutes.
I can.
I'll let you go over a little bit more than the 3 minutes that you're allotted, and I appreciate you coming in and pointing out your opinions. And we'll take.
If there are any questions, I'll be happy to.
Sure. I think we're all set for now. Okay. We have something else, ma'am, that you want to speak?
Actually, I will speak on my own.
Yeah, come on up to the front. Thank you, Mr. McKenzie.
Thank you.
I just would say I'm here representing the Goffstown Public Library, but that's not who I'm representing when I speak tonight.
Fine.
Is that all right with everybody?
Well, you can speak for yourself.
I'm
You're a
coming
Goffstown
from
resident?
resident, yes.
Yes. And your address?
Yeah, I just want to make that clear. 467 East Dunbarton Road.
Okay.
So,
Pardon me?
Margaret Field. So I had just the opposite feeling when I drove down the street and saw those flags flying. It caused a lump in my throat. I have a brother who died from HIV/AIDS in 1986. 7. I have 2 other siblings who are gay. I have a granddaughter right now who goes by the pronoun they, who she's felt comfortable telling her grandparents. And when I saw those flags flying, I just was so touched by it. So I think it's not only for people who are LGBTQ, but friends and family of LGBTQ. And I know we're a big, diverse community, but I just wanted you to hear the other side as well. It was just, I just cried when I saw it.
Well, thank you for your input.
Yes.
Anybody else here for public comment? Seeing none? Motion, Mark?
Motion to go into non-public session, RSA 91A:3, 2 for A, compensation, and I, public safety. Anything else, or is that it?
That's it?
Second.
Seconded by Kelly. Mark?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
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 Yes. That'll conclude tonight's public portion of the June 27th Select Board meeting. Thank you for watching.